Hey everyone, and welcome back to the series on Python. In this session, we will learn about taking user input. Let's get started. So first of all, what do we mean by user input? In simple terms, user input means the input entered by the user during the execution of a program. So let's say we want to store a value in a variable and we want to display that using print function. But when we are writing the program, we don't know the value that we are going to be storing in the variable. Let's say we want to ask the user who is going to be executing the program, or basically using our program or software, we want him or her to enter a value. So how do we do that? Well, we do that using user input. We do something that allows the user to enter something that can be stored in a variable or can be used like any other value like we have done till now. So in simple terms, user input means the input entered by the user who is executing the program during the execution of a program. And execution of a program means during the time when the program is getting executed. So let's say we make a program called print hello. Okay, so this is not the execution time when we are writing this code. Whenever we let's say press F5 or when we run the module, that is the execution process, and during that time when the user is going to be entering something, that will be called as user input. Now let's see how we can actually take user input, right? So we can use a function called input, input parenthesis, for taking user input. Let's jump right on ideally and check it out. So let's actually do a practical example where we would be needing the user input thing. So first of all, let's say we want to welcome the user. So let's create a variable called name is equal to, let's say the name of the user is Avinav. Okay, and let's say we want to welcome him, so we can say print welcome Avinav. No, sorry, we have just stored that variable, right? We are actually going to be using f string in this situation. Welcome space and then curly braces and then name. And if you don't understand this thing, that is what is f string and what I have done here, you should consider watching a session that I have uploaded called working with strings. In that session I have talked about formatted strings or f strings. Basically what we are doing here is saying welcome and then using these curly braces, and inside these curly braces we can basically include any Python expression that is valid. So we are saying name, and name is a variable, so this part will be replaced by Avinav, so it should say welcome Avinav. Let's see. Yes, we get welcome Avinav, right? Now this was just an example, but let's say during the writing of the program, and by the way we can also use script mode if we want to. Let's just use the script mode. So let's open up my rough file. Now in the script mode, let's say we can actually say the same thing like name is equal to Avinav and print f string welcome name, and this will work. This will do the same thing, welcome Avinav again. This is just the script mode, okay? The program is the same, that's why we got the same result. Now let's say we don't know the name of the user. We don't know who the user is during we are writing our code. We want the program to work for any user and not just for Avinav, right? So we have to do something that can detect who the user is rather than just hard coding the user, like writing a constant value. So here we can use user input, and we can ask the user to enter his or her name so that we can understand who the user is and then welcome him or her. So we can use input function, right, as we saw in the slide. Let me just show you. We can use input function for taking user input. let's see how we can use this. So we say input, and that's it, and then the user will be prompted to enter anything he or she wants to, and then that thing will get stored inside this name variable. Okay, and then when we do this welcome name, it is going to print welcome and the thing that user will enter. Let's test it out. So first of all, you can see the cursor right here. It's waiting for the user, that is actually none other than me right now, to enter something. Let's say Anshu, and press enter. See, it said welcome Anshu. This is very good, right? We didn't have anything to do with dynamic programming until now, and by dynamic programming I mean basically doing something during the execution of the code. In short, you can say, or dynamically changing things. So basically we were able to enter something using this input function, right? Now still this doesn't seem very practical. See, when we run this program, the cursor waits for us to enter anything we want to, right? We can say anything, but the problem here is we don't get any message. We don't know what to enter, right? So we should say a message. So we can use a print statement above this, right? Because we know that print statement or print command is used to display something, like let's say enter your name. Okay, and then colon, and then no, let's just leave enter your name and a colon. And now if I run this, see, we got enter your name, and then the cursor is down, and then we can enter Anshu and press enter key, and then we got welcome Anshu. This is very good, right? But still we are using an extra line of code. Actually, whatever the message is, we can just include this message inside the input function also, like this. Just a second, let me correct this format. Yep, we can add this string inside the input function too, and this will do the similar thing. Let's see, we got enter your name, but the problem here is we are not in the new line, because print function by default sends the cursor to the new line, but input function doesn't. So we have to enter in the same line. So let's say Anshu and enter, and we got welcome Anshu, right? You can see there's no space between this column and A, right? So there should be a space to make it look better. So in the message, let's just add a space, and now if we run this, see, we have a space over here, right? We have a space after enter your name and column, and then we can enter Anshu, and we get welcome Anshu. This is perfect, right? For new line, you can actually use a escape character, that is \n. Escape characters are basically the characters that can't be typed directly from the keyboard. You will understand about them in a separate session. For now, just understand anything that goes by \/ is a escape character. So \n is for the new line. Let's just remove the space first, and \n is the new line, so it should add a new line after this text. Let's see. Yes, we got enter your name, and then we can enter our name in the new line. Let's say Anshu, and we get welcome Anshu. It's the same result as the print function that we did the first time, right? When we said print at first rather than using input for the message part. So I hope this example was helpful to you. Let's go with one more example. Let's actually create a small calculator kind of thing. Let's say let's just say num1. This is basically short for number 1 is equal to input. Let's say enter the first number. Okay, so basically this input function will display, first of all, enter the first number, and then it will wait for us to enter a value, and it will then store that value to num1, right? As we know, let's create another variable called num2 is equal to input, and you will see what I'm doing in just a minute. So enter the second number. Now let's say we want to add these two numbers, right? Basically we are making a small program to add two numbers, and those numbers would be taken dynamically from the user and not just written by us in the code. So now let's say print addition is, and again I'm going to be using an f string, so num1 plus num2. So let's say f over here. So addition is, and then within these curly braces a valid Python expression. So num1 plus num2, whatever the numbers will be stored over here, will add up and then we'll see the result. So basically let me first do a walkthrough of this code. First of all, the program will say enter the first number, and we will enter anything. Let's say we enter 5, and then the program will ask for the second number. Let's say we enter 6, and the addition should give us 11, right? Because num1 has 5 and num2 has 6, so 5 plus 6 should be 11. But let's see what we get. Enter the first number, let's say 5, enter the second number. Sorry, actually I forgot about the colon and the space in the input message. Don't worry about it. Let's just say 6. Whoops, we got 56. Why is that the case? We should have gotten 11, right? But we got 56. So is 5 plus 6 really 56? No, it's not. Actually what is happening over here is this 5 that we are entering is a string, and this 6 we are entering over here as a string. That is the reason. We know that 5 we can say like this, and we can also say 5 like this, right? So this 5 that we are entering is actually a 5 as a string data type. Now why is that the case? So first of all, let's say 5 is actually a string, and then 6 is actually a string too. So now we get 56 because of string concatenation that we have understood in working with strings session. So this means both of these things are strings, right? That's why we got 56, because it's just joining the two strings end to end by concatenation method. So now the problem here is this input function. The input function is actually returning the user inputted value as a string type. Whatever we enter, let's say we enter anything like this, it doesn't care. We enter like Anshu, we enter like 45, we enter like 34.5, we enter like 4 plus 5i. Whatever type of data we enter, it doesn't recognize it, and it just converts that thing, not converts actually, it just returns that value as a string type. Okay, so let's say we enter a float value like 4.5, it doesn't think it of as a float value, it just converts that to string, and that's what we get in this variable. So let's say we enter 5, so it's actually 5 as a string. That's why we got num1 as 5 as a string, and in num2 we got 6 as a string, because input function by default returns string type. So we have to convert that value which is a string into an integer. So for that we are going to be using another function which is called as int, right? So first of all, let's just leave it. Let me just show you simply what I mean over here in interactive mode only. So let's say int, and let's pass a string called 45. Okay, so this 45 is obviously a string, right, because of having double quotes around it. So what should we get? Well, we got 45 as an integer. It's integer, and if you don't believe, let me just store that in a variable int 45, and then let's check type of a. See, it's int. Even if it's this string data type, int function basically converts this string into an integer. So that's why it's saying int. So basically int function takes the basically what, a string that contains digits in simple terms, and converts that string to number. We can't just do like this if we want to. Let's say, oh sorry about that, I mean let's say anything, invalid number as a string, because it's not going to be able to be converted into integer. See, we got an error because it's not a string that contains digits, right? So we can't just convert this to integer. This doesn't make sense. So now in this situation, if we enter 5, this whole thing will be replaced by 5, and this whole thing will be replaced by 6. Not actually, it will be a string, as I said you, like this. So we have to convert this to int using int function, right? But we don't have to do just like this. Just a second. We can just say int above the input function, like this. So first of all, let's break it down. This input function will return, let's say 5. Let's say we enter 5, so it will return 5 as a string. So this whole thing will be replaced by 5, and then this 5 will be converted into integer 5. So that's how num1 will be 5 this time as an integer and not a string. Similar thing will happen in this case. This input function will return 6 as a string, and this int will convert that 6 as a string into a 6 as an integer. So this time we should get actually 11. Let's see what happens. Enter the first number, let's say 5. Enter the second number, let's say 6. And again, I forgot about colon and space, sorry about that. See, we got addition is 11 this time. This means that this time actually 5 and 6 that we enter are numbers. Not actually, the things that we enter are nothing but strings still, but that string got converted into an integer using int function, and thus num1 and num2 are storing int values, because before storing the values we converted them into integers. So this is it for this session on Python about user input. In the next session I will be using the concept of user input and conditional statements to create a beautiful project, and that will be a surprise for you. So I will see you there. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.